It is a tremendous honour to be invited to speak to you tonight. Let me first acknowledge the fantastic work of the WA Mining Club in hosting these scholarships and to the sponsors for funding them. Let me also congratulate all of you who have been shortlisted. You should be very proud of your achievements. As the benefit of several industry and academic scholarships many eons ago, I can attest to just how much difference a scholarship can make to your career, both as a candidate and, for the lucky ones, as a recipient. The process of self-reflection required in the application and interview process has at least as much value as the award itself. In the process, I hope you have stopped to ask yourself, why am I pursuing this course of study? What excites me about the minerals industry? And where will I make my biggest difference? You, today's students, are tomorrow's leaders. You will shape the future. As with every generation before you, you will face new challenges and new opportunities. I wonder how well your generation, you and your peers, will be prepared to face these challenges. Only time will tell. However, one thing is for certain. By electing to take a course of study that will lead you to a career in the minerals industry, you are a long way ahead of your peers. By virtue of your choice, you have placed yourself in an industry that is at the front end of the materials and energy supply chains which will shape your world. Also, by virtue of your choice, you have elected to be a participant and not a spectator on the rocky road that will be your future. As a participant, you will come to understand how the world really works and thereby how you can improve it. None of us can know everything about the complex global economies, supply chains, technologies, natural environment, geopolitics, and financial systems that define the world we live in. But at least by participating in some part of that system, you will learn to have some understanding, and I hope some humility, about the magical complexity of our modern world. A world that sustains 8 billion people in a standard of living unimaginable even 50 years ago. This puts you a long way ahead of those who will simply commentate and criticise, and who choose to see industry and civilization itself as a threat rather than a gift. They will never know the thrill of building and contributing as you will. It is not possible to make a positive contribution to the world unless you firstly understand how the world works now and how we got to where we've got to. For this, it is worth stepping back and taking a look from an historical perspective. We live in an era of unprecedented human flourishing. More people now enjoy a higher standard of living and do so for more years and in better health than at any time in human history. Life expectancy 170 years ago was a mere 30 years. It is now 75 years. And this has occurred during a period when global population has increased eightfold, literacy has increased eightfold, and GDP per capita has increased eightfold. The rule of eights. The root cause driver of this stunning transformation in the human condition has been the availability of cheap, reliable energy and materials which came with the Industrial Revolution, freeing people from mundane survival and stimulating untold numbers of scientific, engineering, agricultural, sanitation and medical innovations. Population increase came from reducing infant mortality, controlling endemic diseases, and a 98% reduction in climate-related deaths. Population increase did not come about because we were breeding like rabbits, but rather because we stopped dying like flies. 170 years ago, the common materials of civilization were stone, wood, iron, leather, glass, lead, and copper. And almost all of the world's energy was from biomass. That is, from burning wood and from harnessing of animal power. In the process, England and much of Europe had rapidly depleted most of its forests. Lighting, for those who could afford it, was largely from kerosene, mostly sourced from whale blubber. Today, 80% of global energy comes from coal, oil, and natural gas, the much demonised fossil fuels. Incidentally, the discovery and pumping of rock oil by Colonel Drake in Pennsylvania in 1859 and its refining into kerosene was the first step in the demise of the whaling industry and the emergence of the oil industry. It is not hyperbole to say that the whales were saved by oil. Our civilization today is built with materials, the most important of which are cement, steel, ammonia, plastic, copper, aluminium, and computer chips. Most of this is self-evident if you just stop and look around you. Ammonia may be the surprise until you know that 50% of the world's food crop relies on fertiliser derived from ammonia produced from natural gas using the Haber-Bosch process. Think about that the next time you see protests against natural gas projects and natural gas companies. Do the protesters know that 50% of the world's population would literally starve without natural gas? Computer chips, comprising millions of transistors, although not as big in volume as the other materials, are ubiquitous and contained in almost every electrical device we use. And to get a sense of the incredible penetration of computer chips into our daily lives, here's a fun fact. There are now 10 times more transistors produced in the world each year than there are grains of wheat and rice produced every year. Now that's a staggering statistic. Although these are the dominant materials, almost nothing on the periodic table is untouched or unused by modern society. Take the ubiquitous smartphone, for instance. We all have one in our pocket. It uses 75 out of the 81 stable elements in the periodic table for its manufacture, and 62 of these are metals. All elements in a smartphone, both rare and abundant, come from minerals, usually from metal ores, which must be located, extracted, processed, and refined. It is the minerals industry, your chosen industry, that does this. Life in the mid-19th century, before the Industrial Revolution, can be best described as poor, nasty, brutish, and short. The transformation away from this to safe, prosperous, and fulfilling lives has been repeated elsewhere since. In my lifetime, China has seen a 10-fold increase in energy use per capita. Life expectancy has increased by 30 years, and 800 million souls have been lifted out of poverty, most of which has occurred in the last 25 years. India has seen a similar, albeit slower pace, transition. Tellingly, global extreme poverty has fallen dramatically. In 1980, when I started my career, around 42% of the world's population lived on less than $2 a day. And today that figure is less than 10%, a fourfold reduction. These are stunning changes, and it is difficult to absorb the big numbers. But to put it into perspective, the magnitude of the reduction in poverty would be the equivalent of reading a newspaper headline that says 100,000 people lifted out of poverty yesterday, and seeing that headline being repeated each and every day for 30 years. Think about that. An additional MCG's worth of people lifted out of dire poverty on the back of abundant materials and cheap energy, mostly coal, every day for 30 years. And yet energy poverty is still a big issue, with 3.1 billion people, or around 40% of the world's population, including almost everyone in sub-Saharan Africa, still having access to no more energy than the average German or Frenchman had in 1860. So the job is not done. Far from it. Only around 1.5 billion people, or 20% of the world's population, have access to abundant energy and materials and a quality of life equivalent to what we would consider normal, including food, shelter, access to education and healthcare, and access to clean drinking water. The minerals industry is a global industry, so you will inevitably have the opportunity to work in Africa, Asia, or South America, where you will get to see the tragedy of this poverty firsthand, not in the abstract, where it can easily be dismissed. Seeing forests in the Congo denuded by charcoal burners who cart their wares by cycles to market for sale, and people sitting in shanty shacks over cooking fires burning dung, is the sad reminder that poverty and environmental degradation go hand in hand, because these people have a lack of access to cheap, reliable energy and materials. Dangerously, there are forces afoot in the world today that would seek, intentionally or unintentionally, to reverse the direction of energy and mining growth, and hence of poverty reduction. French President Emmanuel Macron recently called for the end of the age of abundance. Ironically, he made this pronouncement from the Palace of Versailles, against a backdrop of gilded furniture and walls, and seemingly oblivious to the fact that 80% of the world's population has never experienced abundance. The minerals industry will be at the leading edge of extending abundance to those who are presently left out. Globally, more mines operating at lower grades and lower cost will be needed to achieve this feat. For Australia to remain at the forefront of the global minerals industry, we must continue to relentlessly pursue innovation and creativity that will find the next generation of ore bodies, and at the same time become more and more efficient at safely exploiting them. I was at a seminar last week where the topic, Trends Shaping the Future of Mining, was discussed. Two major challenges stood out. The first is that continued innovation and technological improvement in the minerals industry is essential if Australia is to remain relevant and globally competitive. The second is that mining remains on the nose in Australia. To the first point, as geologists, surveyors, metallurgists, engineers and scientists working in the mining industry, you will be the innovators who will find ore bodies and continually find more productive and lower cost ways of exploiting them to the benefit of humanity. Just as your predecessors did so successfully before you, to build the modern world. You should know and celebrate these people, the heroes of the minerals industry. For the metallurgists, You would do well to know the story of William Daniel Delprat, BHP General Manager in the 1920s and inventor of froth flotation, a technology which dramatically reduced costs, thereby lowering cut-off grades and made available new metals and massively reduced environmental damage from smelting. If you get the chance to visit Queenstown in Tasmania, you will see firsthand the damage that large-scale pyritic smelting can do to a landscape. Delprat's invention not only saved other landscapes from similar fate, but also increased the wealth locked up in Broken Hill through the release of the zinc that was locked in the slag dumps and had previously been unrecoverable. For the geologists, you have many heroes to choose from. Amongst them, Charles Lyell, Paddy Hannon, John Campbell Miles, Lang Hancock, and Roy Woodall. Pathfinders in the discovery of the ore bodies and mining addresses that have underpinned the wealth of Australia. For the mining engineers, there is Essington Lewis, General Manager of BHP, who as Director General of Munitions, drove the rapid industrialisation of Australia in the lead up to and during World War II, without which Australia would not have had the arms to defend itself from Japanese invasion. Then there's Herbert Hoover, who cut his teeth as the first General Manager at the Gwalia mine in Leonora and went on to become the 31st President of the United States. And more recently, Jim Torlak, WA State Mining Engineer, whose association with the Elimination of Fatalities Task Force led to a dramatic improvement in safety in the mining industry in the 1990s. For the mechanical engineers, there's Rudolf Diesel, inventor of the miraculous diesel engine, without which mining, farming, and global shipping would not be possible at the low cost and scale that it operates today. There is not a product that you use in your everyday life that has not used the diesel engine in its manufacture or supply chain to reach you. You should find your inspiration in these and other great innovators and leaders of the minerals industry who have led us to the unprecedented prosperity that we enjoy today. Mostly they achieved what they did by being very good at their respective core disciplines and extremely persistent. I urge you to do the same. Don't be distracted by the latest feel-good initiative or fad, and there will be plenty. Rather, it will be by working professionally and sticking to your core discipline that you will make the biggest impact. The minerals industry relies on thousands of professionals like yourselves doing their day jobs really well. Collectively, our objective is to extract the maximum metal from the land area disturbed and the energy consumed. We do this through minimising costs, improving efficiency, and maximising productivity. The metallurgist, who increases recovery by 2%. The mining engineer, who improves the conversion of resources to reserves by optimising a stope design. And the geologist, who finds an ore body extension and thereby increases mine life, have all materially conserved resources, minimising environmental impact for the metal produced. Simply by doing your day job well, you will be the real conservationists. And to the second point, my advice is do not get suckered into being defensive about the mining industry. For all the reasons, historical and contemporary, that I've mentioned already, we have every right to be proud of what our industry has contributed to the modern world and to human flourishing. That mines and mining fields regularly continue to produce for a century or more is testament to the incredible work of professionals in seeking and finding innovative and more productive ways of operating. A great example of this is the persistence of the Eastern Goldfields region, which has continuously produced gold for over 130 years. You would have been forgiven in the 1970s for thinking that this would not be possible. But then the innovation of the carbon in pulp for gold extraction and low-cost open-pit contract mining saw numerous mines reopen. In many cases, repairing historical environmental damage in the process. Those that criticise mining are usually ignorant and misinformed. Use your knowledge to respectfully correct these misconceptions. Most people will agree on reflection that mining is necessary. Ask them where their mobile phone comes from. At the same time, acknowledge that like all other human activity, mining will impact the environment, albeit temporarily. It is the collective job of the mining ecosystem comprising companies, regulators and communities to get the balance right so that we can find ways to responsibly operate mines to everyone's benefit. And just stop everything is not a balance. The world has an insatiable appetite for materials and minerals, and that demand is not reducing, but will in fact increase under any future scenario. If we fail in this country to create the balance that allows for responsible mining, then we will simply succeed in outsourcing mining to other jurisdictions. Jurisdictions that will most likely have a lower standard of environmental stewardship than our own. A reduced mining sector will also be extremely detrimental to our economy. And by the way, the economy is not some abstract notion. It means healthcare, education, environmental protection, national defence, clean water, and clean and safe cities. My own career has spanned 47 years, starting with vacation work in an underground coal mine in Ipswich, just outside of Brisbane, through to my consulting work for multiple different mining companies and sites today. During this time, I've seen enormous changes, most notably in mine safety, but also dramatic changes in mining methods and efficiency. I've worked for almost 50 mining companies, and though I've always been based in Australia, I have visited and consulted to mines in 20 countries. My story is in no way unusual. If this was a game of one-upmanship, there are plenty of old-timers in this room who would rejoin with, "That's nothing." I'm looking at Barry. I've no doubt that you too are on the threshold of a similarly exciting and challenging career. For what it's worth, here are 4 simple tips. Firstly, do your job well, and remember, your reputation is everything. Secondly, accumulate experiences. If you're offered an opportunity, your default answer should be yes. Thirdly, find your strengths and passions and build on these. And fourthly, network widely and seek out good leaders who will maximise your potential. Not the soft ones, but rather those who will challenge you and provide guidance and room for growth. Stay in touch with the WA Mining Club. It will provide an excellent means to network and stay up to date on issues and trends in the WA mining industry, which will help you steer your career through the inevitable twists and turns it will take. Once again, my congratulations to you all, and my best wishes to you as you complete your studies and take your place in this proud and exhilarating industry. Thank you.